Our next presenter is no stranger to our industry. Her name's Karen Barbour. And Karen, I'm sorry I don't have anything written up on you in front of me, but I'd like to have a warm welcome for Karen, our next speaker. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. You're welcome. Which way is it?
Down.
Yeah.
Okay. So good morning, everybody.
Yes, good morning.
Yeah. So with me today I have Josh Lopez and Audrey Lopez. Josh is my key producer, marketing director, and Audrey is my operations manager. And Dee Cutler, she's still here. Oh, she's my chief growth officer. So we're here to help you even after this presentation is over, and you can all hear me correctly? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So they asked me to be a keynote to talk about some growth, how to grow your companies. It's a very difficult economic time for a lot of DBEs and MBEs and WBEs. So this slide, even though it's geared for Surety, just think of it as a way to access capital, because Surety is capital too. And what we require is what the banks require. So don't look at it as, well, this doesn't pertain to me, because I'm sure you'll find some useful tidbits in it. So I'm the owner of the Barbour Group. I've been very active in the state legislature. I've got a lot of laws passed. I got a retention law to reduce, retention to 5% in the state. I've helped with the Subcontractors Equal Access to Bonding Act. I've gotten the Change Order Fairness Act law passed in Maryland. A lot of legislative things I've been active in, and that's how Alice and I have gotten to know each other. But I wanted to start with this graph. It is a graph on tariffs and what it's going to do to spike certain goods in the industry. And I'm sorry you can't see it that well, but the first one, the 41%, is metals. So you're going to see a 41% hike increase in metals. So if you do steel, miscellaneous metals, you're going to see a big escalation in your price. And it's also on, electrical equipment, machinery, manufactured goods. And even if you want to de-stress yourself and go on a fishing trip, you're looking at a 10% increase in that too. So it's going to come down, but it's not going to go back to ground zero. You're still going to have price escalations. So when you do your subcontract agreement, to make sure you can negotiate a price escalation clause in there, because it's too vulnerable and you're not going to be able to manage those extra costs. Now, I see Surety as a strategic partner, just like your bank could be a strategic partner, and what they can offer you in terms of free education, free resources is priceless. And that it gets imparted by somebody like me who is a bond broker. I do not do insurance, I just do surety bonds. So we see it as a long-term partnership, and we provide a lot of information for you. Now, there are fast-track programs based off personal credit where you can apply for surety bonds. That's not going to really sustain you if you want to grow your company. This presentation is on how do I really become impactful in my community, how do I grow my company, and how do I sustain myself and my employees, right? And so these are the key elements that you're going to need to show any creditor to prove to them that you're sustainable. And a buy-sell agreement, that one listed, I'll talk about it a little bit later, but that's basically if you have 2 or more partners. But I'm going to show you some other things, but cost accounting system is important. Every surety company that you meet, if you have, when surety or credit becomes your lifeblood of your company, they're going to ask you, what is your cost accounting system? How often do you track your job costs? Now, that's for fixed price contracts. Your cost plus contracts, unit price contracts, time and material, okay, it's a little different accounting system. But fixed price contracts are very important to make sure you have an accurate cost accounting system. And I'll show you some things about that. Again, these are the tools that are used by any bank or surety company. Forecasting, now when you're a startup business, all creditors know that they can't predict or forecast you for 5 years, because your overhead is going to change dramatically over that course of time, right? You might not even pay yourself the first year. You may just take a distribution at the end of the year when you think you have the money to pay yourself. I know that's what I did. My first year in business, I made a whopping $17,000, right? I couldn't take salary. I didn't know what I could pay myself for at least 3 years. So, and I started my company right after 9/11, right after all of the construction projects were defunded and sent to Homeland Security. So what I thought I was going to get in bonding, we're all defunded. And there's never a right time to start your business. There's never a right time to start your family. It just happens and you have to deal with it. And you're just gonna have to figure out how to make money no matter what. And so sometimes the state of Maryland has these 5-year contracts. I passed a law in Maryland in 2018. Comar only had one type of bond form, and that was for fixed price contracts. They didn't have an annual bond form for annual contracts. So a lot of surety companies said, we want to support you on this 5-year contract, but we want to write annual bonds. And Comar only has one bond for fixed price contracts. We can't do that. We can't give you a 5-year contract. So a lot of small businesses weren't getting snow removal contracts. They weren't getting glass cleaning contracts. So now there's an annual bond form in Comar that says that each year we provide you a bond, and that way now you can be more competitive on those projects. So, and I say that because we simply couldn't forecast small business out for 5 years. But now we can look at you on an annual basis. And if we don't provide the bond, the surety company's not going to be held in default. It's up to you, contractor, to get a replacement surety. So BWI was the first entity that was willing to change their contract terms, but they said to us, they said to me, we can't change your bond form, that's something you have to legislate. That took me 4 years.
Wow.
So it took a long time. All right, so key ratios. There are key ratios that you have to know if you want to grow your business. If you got to look at your total debt to what your equity is. If your total debt exceeds your equity more than 4 times, you got some explaining to do, right? Because you're on the verge of insolvency. Now, if that debt is mostly current debt with not a lot of interest-bearing debt to it, maybe we can massage it to a little bit higher number, but you're already a red flag at that point. Now, the other ratio that you want to look at is your interest-bearing debt to net worth, and that really shouldn't be greater than 1 to 1. Now, I know this sounds like, oh my God, I'm getting a lecture here from somebody talking about accounting, but I promise you, these are really key ratios, and if you're serious about growing your company, you need to know these ratios. And your account receivable turnover rate is really important. Every bank, every surety company will not treat your over 90 receivables as a current asset. It comes right off into a long term until we know that it's collected. Now, sometimes your cost accounting system will float those receivables. When you bill your retention, it'll automatically float it over to an over 90 category. You got to let me know that that's billed retention, then we'll treat it above the line if it's collected. Because sometimes, we get an account in and it's September and I'm looking at your June information and your June AR. I need to know from June to September how much you've collected, right? So some people fight me, but you're gonna lose. I'm telling you. All right. So I wish that link would work, but that link will open up a presentation on all the key ratios you need to know. And it gives you how to calculate them and what they mean. So don't worry about what I'm telling you today. You don't have to absorb it. I'm going fast because there's a lot of slides and this is really important information and I worked really hard on it, so I want to get it all out here. Okay. But again, the 4 to 1 ratio, 1 to 1, and I'm going to have to get my glasses. Your overhead to sales ratio is really important too, because that's where we look at forecasting, because we know that you're growing your company. So if we see that the overhead ratio to sales is kind of wonky, then we're going to say, okay, did you hire some new project managers? Because we don't see any new work. Are you anticipating new work, and are you trying to make new hires for your company now, trying to absorb that overhead while you don't have work coming in because you think you're going to get the work in? We just need to know what's going on. So there's a lot of stories behind the numbers, and it can be painful trying to explain them, but we get the truth. And it's good. It's good information to have. So I wanted, okay, so this one is business continuity and planning. This is a very touchy subject, right? No one wants to talk about death, dying, disabled, COVID, fog brain, not being able to work. When you're just a one-person owner in your company, the surety company or bank doesn't mind giving you a small bank line of credit or a small surety bond line for jobs that probably finish within a year, because they think, okay, you're pretty healthy now. We think you're going to finish that work at the end of the year. But when you grow your company, the school in Northeast, that's a 4-year project. You could be on that project for 4 years. So now you're taking on larger projects, 2, 3, 4 million, right? As you grow your company, you're going to have a continuity plan in the event that something happens to you, right? We do not want to deal with your spouse when it comes to operating your company if your spouse has nothing to do with your company. So I have given you, in those links, there are continuity documents given to me by a surety company. And they're not a buy-sell agreement, but they're continuity agreements that you can look at, educate yourself on, cut and paste, and form your own document to show to your creditor how you're going to complete that work in the event that something happens to you. Don't make it too complicated. You can have your CPA, you can have a contract with your CPA to say that they're going to close out the books and records. You can have a deal with your project manager, or somebody that you know from another company. You always have friends in construction, and you can go to them and say, look, if something happens to me, would you agree to finish my work? And you could have so much percentage of the profit. So there's things you can do to show to your creditor and surety company that you've protected their money too. Oops, what did I do? Did I turn on? Oh, no. Is this one about trust? Oh, okay. So there's other things you can do with your company as you grow it, like employee-owned companies, joint ventures, and you can also have deferred compensation plans for your employees. That's what I'm working with some of my clients today. They have some really good key employees, and the owner happens to be 70, so he's going to do a deferred compensation plan that will kick in if something happens to him, and they will get the money, and they will agree to assist, in order to get that money, they will agree to stay on and complete the work. So there's all kinds of cool things you can do. And Roger Feldman is here. He's an expert continuity person. Roger, raise your hand. Very nice man, and he knows a lot of construction people. I wanted to mention too that when you do surety, or even when you go to the bank, they're going to ask for your personal indemnity. And if you're married, they're going to ask for your spouse to indemnify, because your spouse is going to spend your money. So they got to follow the money, right? And it's mostly going to be held for, publicly traded firms. They don't have personal indemnity. ESOPs, they will personally indemnify to some extent if there's a huge loan involved back to the owners, but it's going to be a limited type of indemnity. Now, trust structures. Revocable trusts are fine. You can put your assets in a revocable trust. That trust can indemnify. But if you have an irrevocable trust and your company equity is in there, your company stock is in there, your personal assets are in there, that trust cannot indemnify, and you're not going to get a bank line of credit, and you're not going to get surety support if you have that type of trust. So please talk to whoever you're going to talk to, bank-wise, surety-wise, before you decide what path of trust you're going to do. And then if you have a prenup agreement with your spouse, we honor those, and we will exclude your spousal indemnity. Now, I talked about the key personnel before, about how you can use a deferred compensation plan, but keep in mind, we need to see your resumes. A lot of small businesses are very quick to hire and slow to fire. You need to reverse that. You need to be slow to hire and quick to fire, because they're going to cost you money. And so we want to see those resumes on those key people. We want to see those bios, right? They don't have to be anything fancy, but we need to make sure that you've got a capable staff. We're not going to interview them. We just need to have that in our file to see who's on your team and what kind of expertise we can rely on in the event that something happens to you. And it's always good to get key man life insurance on them. God forbid something happens to them. If you have $100,000 or $200,000 policy on a young person, it's pretty cheap. That money comes back to the company to give you tax-free money to hire somebody else. And then life insurance payable to the company are very important for you as an owner. The surety company can use that money in the event that there is a loss and you're not around. They can cover the debts of the company. And then it's also beneficial if you have an extra partner. If you have a 50% owner, for example, if something happens to that owner, that life insurance on that partner can be used by the company tax-free to then pay off his portion of stock to his estate, so the company's not out any money. And it's always good too, and so banks, when they give you a bank line of credit, let's say it's only for $100,000, maybe get a $100,000 policy with the bank as the beneficiary. It will really show them that you want to protect them. Now, and they'll feel more comfortable loaning you the money. Types of indemnity agreements. I wanted to read this one out to you, but I will need my glasses for that. Oh, there you go. Okay. So when you sign an indemnity agreement with the surety company, you're not going to like it. I just wanted to give you an idea of some of the things that they can do to you in the event of a claim, because surety is not insurance, right? If you have a default on a project and the surety company pays out on that project, you have to pay them back. So here's what you're going to sign when you sign a surety company indemnity agreement, and this is a thread that is common among all indemnity agreements with all sureties. Surety shall have the right in its sole discretion to decide whether any claims arising out of or related to any bond shall be paid, compromised, defended, prosecuted, or appealed, regardless of whether or not suit is actually filed or commenced against surety upon such claim. Principal agrees to be conclusively bound by surety's determination. So when you go on a large project and you decide to grow your company and you've never worked with this GC before, we know good claims consultants. Hire them for the first 2 weeks of your project. Let them outline to you what you need to do to protect your interest on that job, okay? You need to fight because claims are mostly brought about by personality conflicts 99% of the time. I know, I was a subcontractor. I did steel erection and metal fabrication. We renovated the Washington Monument project. Trust me, when I walked on a job site, there were personality conflicts, right? So I had to really watch my men because they would like to take up for me, and I'm like, you got to stand down. Can't do that, you know? You got to make sure who you have in the field that are going to represent your interests and are going to have cool heads. Good luck. So the surety company can decline, even though you get a bondability letter, the surety company can still decline to write the bond if they feel that this job is not in your scope of work or you didn't present them with the financial information they needed to approve the job. Okay. Am I making sense so far? Yes. Okay. So also types of indemnity agreements, they're joint in several. Some of you might enter a joint venture. You might have 30% or 20% and the other guy's got the larger share, right? And the other guy is a bigger guy, and he says, I know you don't have the bonding capacity to do this job, so you sign on with our surety company, and we'll bond the entire project. And you think that you're only going to be on the hook for your portion. No. So let me show you what happens now. So now the common definition that you're going to see in most all surety agreements is the persons and entities jointly and severally signing below or for whom any bond is issued or committed to by surety or any one or combination thereof or their successors in interest, whether alone or in joint venture with others named herein or not named herein, which is pretty broad, and any person or entity that directly or indirectly through one or more intermediaries controls or is controlled by or is under common control with any party to this agreement. What that means is that you're on the hook for 100%. So J.A. Jones was a big GC back in the early 2000s in DC. And they partnered with a lot of DC firms on joint ventures. And I bonded some of those subs, the minority subs, and J.A. Jones went bankrupt. And those subs were held on that job, joint and several. And they went under. They could not afford to manage the rest of that JV or finance it. And they signed an indemnity agreement that held them to be joint and several liability. So you can have all the verbiage you want in your joint venture to protect your interest, but if the indemnity agreement you sign with the surety has this language, this prevails. So I just wanted to give you that, because when you grow your company, you get these bigger jobs thrown at you, and everybody's saying, oh, we're gonna do this for you, do that for you, read the indemnity agreement, because that goes out the window, this takes precedence, if there's a claim. Okay, I'm just letting you know, growth is great, but you have to know what you don't know. So again, all indemnitors are equally responsible, and that includes related parties, joint ventures, controlled entities, etc. Again, this is just a recap. I'm going to skip that slide. The reason why every affiliate and every subsidiary has to indemnify is because money can flow from entity to entity with no tax consequence. So the surety company always has to follow the money to make sure they can grab what's rightfully theirs to finish the work. Okay, personal indemnity. When you're a small business, you have to personally indemnify. We talked about cross-corporate. Now, as you grow your company, there are little things that can happen to benefit you. Now we can, if you've proven your track record, you've grown your company, you've got good equity in there, you're doing everything right, then we can try to get limited dollar indemnity. We can cap your personal exposure, like maybe to only $500,000. If you've got a $30 million bond program, we can cap your exposure to $500,000, for example. So you're not on the hook for all 30 million of your backlog. And then there's also, even if let's say you need a third-party indemnitor to back you because maybe your personal credit's not so good, we can take that into account, but we need to educate that third-party person to know that they're on there joint and several. So you got to let your mom and dad know that before they sign the agreement. There are other indemnity clauses that I wanted to educate you on, because not every small business knows this. You can agree as your company grows to a capital retention agreement. A capital retention agreement, and banks have these too, says you agree to keep so much money in your company, and if you do, your personal indemnity is off the hook. But if you take a distribution that drops that mark below the line, then you've just exposed yourself. So before you want to take a large distribution and perhaps violate that capital retention agreement, you want to have a conversation with your surety company through your broker to make sure the surety company understands that. They can give you a new capital retention agreement with a lower limit and maybe a reduced bond program to avoid you violating agreement. All right? Once you violate a surety agreement, the surety industry is so small, and so is the banking. That message gets out there. You don't want that. You don't want them to say, oh, he violated or she violated the agreement. Spousal, we can do non-transfer agreements for spouses. If the spouse agrees, if you agree not to transfer your personal assets over to your spouse or company assets over to your spouse, and they sign a non-transfer agreement, we can, down the road, eliminate your spousal indemnity. And then homestead exclusions are common. If you're, have a proven track record, we can see about getting your home waived on the indemnity agreement. All right, subordination. Let's say your company is not capitalized, but you have people that want to support you, and they want to loan your money, or you want to take some of your personal funds and put it in your company. You can do that. And if you agree not to take that money out until you've talked to your surety company, they'll give you a subordination agreement to sign, and they will treat that loan as capital, not as debt in your company. So if you put $100,000 in, you might get an extra $2 million in bonding off that. That's a big return on that money, bigger than you're getting anywhere else, I'm sure. On that $2 million, you could make 10% profit. That's $200,000, and you only put $100,000 in. So you've got to think about your return on investments when you have your own money sitting in a 3% or 5% CD, what you could do with that. And you can still put it in an interest-bearing account with your company. You also can make payments. You can work out agreed payments with the surety company, and your company can give you interest on that. So you can, get some tax breaks. I am going to show you, this next one, I put together a sample promissory note. Whenever you loan money to someone, you should have a promissory note that defines those terms. So I've given you a sample promissory note for you to use. And that's been accepted by the surety companies. And I can't open it because I don't think the internet's working here. But when you get the slides, the links will be active. Now, when you grow your company, sometimes you take on a lot of work too fast. And what happens is you can't finance all that work, and your profit starts to fade on projects. Because now what happens when you grow your company, I'm being mindful of my time, you might get a lot of change orders, right? But guess what? You're still growing and you don't have the right people to help you process those change orders. You might not be doing any compliance with your contract, and those change orders aren't getting approved. They're getting delayed because you're not doing the right paperwork because you don't have the staff to do it. I know, it happened to me in my firm. It's very frustrating. But it's a hard lesson, so I'm trying to make you understand you got to avoid some of these lessons. But the surety company could get very concerned over what they're seeing and demand that you put money in the company, demand that you put collateral with them if they're concerned about you as a going concern in terms of financing your work. So you're under the microscope with your creditors and your surety as you grow your company. Always bond your subcontractors and suppliers to reduce your exposure. Most general contractors will ask for their sub bonds $150,000 and higher. Hensel Phelps does that, and a lot of GCs do, because of the tariffs and everything that's going on, they want to make sure that their subs are bonded. And we do have a link on our website. You can get qualified for free. Takes about a day. If it's a 10-minute application, it's online, and you can know if your sub is bonded or not. And they always want to see, even the banks want to see that you have retained counsel to review your contracts. Now, we talked about lingering approved change orders and large underbillings. So if you can't bill for that change order, that's an underbilling. And an underbilling is kind of like an unbilled receivable, and it's going to show as an asset on your balance sheet. But if it's sitting there for a long time and nothing's moving, any creditor is going to wonder what's going on with it, right? So these are red flags. I'm just letting you know, growth is painful. And in this link, is a slide presentation. I've been doing this for 40 years, and so I've accumulated contract clauses that have been problematic that I've negotiated on and got language changed, and it's also in Spanish. So when you open up that link, you will get a plethora of contract terms to be weary of, and these were proven, the languages were proven to be accepted for the most part by the general contractors in modifying or negotiating their contracts. So don't think you can't negotiate your contract. As a sub, every contract you have is considered a private contract, even on federal work. So you don't know where the risk is going to come in. There might be some flow down language from the federal government, there should be, but again, you have to read that prime contract to really make sure what you're signing. And a lot of times when private jobs like multifamily housing, I don't know if you're aware, but owners often, or sometimes I should say, will sell their project to a different owner. And during that time, there could be a 90-day delay on financing. So here you are, not getting paid, doing your work, and it's been 90 days, maybe more, and you had no idea that the project was sold and that it's going for owner refinancing again. So you want to make sure you've got clauses in your contract that protect you against that, okay? And design build projects often come with the inability to submit a change order. If you're part of the design team, a lot of times you can't submit change orders. You're kind of stuck with what you gave them. And consequential damages, let's say on private work or school construction, mostly on private work. If that owner cannot rent that building on the time that he needs it to be rented and loses rent because you failed to perform on time, you're responsible for that rent if you allowed to have your company be responsible for consequential damages. So you want to make sure you strike that from your contract. You can't afford that, right? It's going to be very expensive. So anyway, the language to show you how to do that is in that link. All right, almost done here. The SBA is a great tool for bonding. They do great loans. They also back bonds, just like they back loans with banks. They back bonds with surety companies. And the SBA is great. They will look at internal financial statements up to $3 million, single job, and they can go up to like 9 million. I think that says 9 million on federal and 14 million on private. And they can go 2.5 times your largest job completed. They don't care if you have deficit equity. They want to see working capital, current assets minus current liabilities. A lot of times you're going to have deficit equity if you took out a big IDL loan, right? Keep in mind too, that they're the only program that if you have a bank line of credit, say $100,000, and you're not using it at the time you need a bond, they will give you, just on the availability of that $100,000 line of credit, an extra $2 million in bonding, 20 times. So you can have zero working capital and deficit net worth, $100,000 bank line, and they'll give you $2 million in bonding. Nobody knows that really, so I'm just letting you know. Get a bank line, even if you don't need one, because you never know when you're going to need the SBA, if it applies for your type of work. This is the chart that the SBA puts out. I don't need to go over that. So market trends. I mean, you're going to be looking at inflation pricing. You're going to be looking at, do you have an adequate bank line of credit to absorb that? Labor shortages, ICE rates, there's a lot of things going on. And you need more than ever to make sure you protected yourself in your subcontract agreement. Then Dee, I don't know, is Dee still here? No, she left. Dee is my Chief Growth Officer. She works with the Department of Defense. She manages the DoD Mentor Protege program. The DoD funds that program. She works mostly with IT and engineering firms, and she's been doing it for a long time. So if you want to reach out to her and you're interested in the Mentor Protege program with the DoD, it's a great program. They actually fund all of the operation expenses of your joint venture under the DoD, which includes CMMC, which is Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, which you have to have if you're going to be doing any type of federal work. Whether as a sub or as a GC, it goes in tiers. It's very expensive. As a joint venture, you would be prime on a project. You could be talking $80,000 to $100,000 for CMMC certification. So if you can get the DoD to pay for that for 2 years, it's good. And then there are other options out there, and we're going to have presentations on them with our company down the road, which can show you how to save money there. But also drones and AI, be very careful. If you think that you're on a high-profile job or you're on a job that you know is going to be really difficult for you to manage, sometimes getting your own videos and your own drones to tape what you do is very good because you don't know how the other drones are going to tape you. I mean, you just don't know. I'm hoping everybody's honest, but sometimes things can be manipulated. And then we have the social and economic trends. A lot of people, look, when you get to 10 million in sales, you become, global investors start to like you. You catch their eye when you hit 10 million in sales. And you also become attractive to private equity firms. So a lot of private equity firms will not indemnify, which could hurt your bonding. So you just want to make sure that if you go down that road, to please talk to your broker, because the surety company has so many resources for this, free, and they can give you what you need to know to make that deal work in your best interest. We talked about succession planning, and I don't know what's going to go with the DBE and DEI programs. If those programs didn't exist when I had my agency, I wouldn't be here today. I bond a lot of Asian firms, Black firms, Hispanic firms, you name it, women-owned firms, and I just hope that we continue to pursue our happiness and able to get work. I know there's a due process law, of the Constitution. It's, I think, the 5th. It's just part of that due process is the pursuit of happiness, and we need to know where ours is going to rest, right? We deserve that. So anyway, I wrote a letter, and it went a little viral, so I'm excited. Maybe it'll get some attention.
Cool.
Yeah. So anyway, this is just repeating what I said before. I'm trying to brush through this. And so again, what underwriters want to see: financial statements prepared by a CPA, contract review by legal, and appropriate insurance. Now, as you grow your company, you might get some unruly employees because you're going to be quick to hire, because you're not going to follow my advice. You're not going to be slow to hire. You're going to do the quick to hire one. So when you do, you might get some unruly employees who might say things that they shouldn't say. And trust me, I'm sure you know what I mean, and you can be sued for that. That is covered under Employee Practices Liability Insurance, EPLI. You should have that for your company, protect you, because it also comes with a legal defense. So in the event you are sued for any racist slurs, because it's called respondent superior. You are responsible as an owner for every action of every employee, whether you were there or not. That's just the way owning a business works. So you have to have that insurance to protect you. And you want to make sure you have professional liability insurance, because I'll give you an example. Let's say you finally got this big job to put in tile in a multi-story building for every bathroom, and there's a lot of them. And you're putting in the tile on the ground, and the GC comes to you and says, you know, that tile's going to be slippery. We need to make it more ADA compliant. Please etch the tile. So you etch every floor of that building. But then the architect comes in and says, I never approved that. You got to replace all that tile. I want the other tile back. That comes under your professional liability insurance, because that's a value engineering decision you made that you shouldn't have made. Okay, you were negligent, but you weren't willfully negligent. And that'll cover you, and that again comes with legal defense fund. So you're not going to be out any attorney's fees. And then that's it. So I went pretty fast, and I'm sorry I couldn't open up the links because they're pretty cool. But you'll have a fun time, I'm sure, looking at them. Anyway, if you have any questions for me, you know, your surety agent, whoever that is, can package your submission with your permission and send it to their banker friends for review. So it's something you don't have to do. You just need to give them permission, because we're bound by the Privacy Act. We can't talk about our clients or share information about you. And so we do negotiate bank lines of credit for our clients. And it, you know, it's been kind of successful. So just so you know, that's another thing that a broker can do for you. Thank you.
Thank you.